Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the August 22nd meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. I'd like to call us to order. Before we get started, just have a few housekeeping items. If you have a cell phone with you, please silence or turn it off. If you're here to speak on an item and are not the applicant, if you could please fill out one of these forms available outside and provide them to the staff down here below, that would be great. When your item is heard, you will be called to come to the podium to speak. You'll have up to 5 minutes. If you're here to speak on an item with a large number of people, we encourage you to elect a representative to share your group's concerns, and some additional time will be given to that person speaking on behalf of multiple people. Where several people are speaking on the same item, please do your best to limit your comments to items that we haven't heard yet. We'll reserve the right to limit any extensive or repetitious comments. And then lastly, please direct all your comments and questions to the commission. And then if needed, we'll ask staff or the applicant to respond. So finally, we appreciate everyone's presence here today, and we know that you have other obligations that you've taken time away from. We just kindly ask for your assistance in upholding the decorum of the meeting, and we ask that you not speak from the gallery, only when you're at the podium. So with that, we'll move to item 1, item 2, is receipt of the minutes of the August 8th Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes from the August 8th, 2024 meeting.
All right, we have a motion to receive the minutes. I apologize, I somehow got booted out. Did we have a second? All right, please bear with us while we overcome technology. Do we need a second and a voice vote?
We need a second.
Yeah. All right, we have a second to receive the minutes from Commissioner Pennington. Voice vote?
Aye.
Yay.
Aye. Aye. All right, minutes are received. Item 3 is continuance requests.
We have 3 uncontested requests. Item 19, case SPUD 1651, request to defer to September 12th. Item 20, case SPUD 1663, defer to September 12th. And item 21, the accessory dwelling ordinance, request to defer to September 26th.
Is there anyone here that'd like to speak on any of those items? All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to receive the uncontested requests as written.
A motion to approve the uncontested continuance request is written. Do we have a second? Second. It's been seconded. And I think we're very close to having our system back. No? Okay. Voice. I was trying to be optimistic. Voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. All right, those continuances are approved. New requests?
We have one new request, item 18, PUD 2026, request to defer to September 12th.
Do we have anyone here who'd like to speak on that item? Seeing none, I just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the new request as read.
We have a motion to approve the new request. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Voice vote?
Yes.
Aye. All right, that new request is approved. That brings us to item 4, which is the public hearing portion of our docket and the consent docket.
We have just one item on the consent docket. Item 1, case C-7677, final plat of VVC Phase 1, located north of Northwest Expressway and west of North Mustang Road.
All right, one last time I'll confirm that we don't have anyone signed up to speak for that item. Nope, just need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent docket as read.
A motion to approve the consent docket. Second? Second by Commissioner Meek. And we're still voice voting?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Consent docket is approved. Okay, items for individual vote. Item 2.
This is case CE 1127, application to close a portion of a north-south utility easement on Lot 1 and Block 2 of Summit Ridge Addition, and on Lots 5 and 6 in Block 2 of Summit Ridge Section 3, located west of Gary Place and north of North Oklahoma Avenue.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates on behalf of the applicant. We're requesting to close a utility easement that has not been utilized to this point. The sanitary sewer runs on the backside of these lots and water is in the street. And so if you go back to the exhibit, Jared, the lots were actually platted more east-west, and for some reason at the time, this easement ran through a couple of the lots, making a large portion of them unusable. So we're seeking to vacate it. And so with that, staff recommended approval. There's one TE that we agree to. We've actually already provided the topographic survey to staff. So with that, we'd ask for your recommendation of approval.
Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've met with the applicant. This development is consistent with the other development immediately in the area, so I'm fully in support and prepared to make the motion to recommend approval. Or to approve, excuse me.
Any, I think it's a recommendation of approval.
'Cause, yeah.
Any other commissioner comment, questions? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to City Council approval of CE 1127.
Motion to recommend approval of item CE 1127. Still not working. Seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes verbally.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3.
Item 3.
Item 3 is case PUD 1715-SP11, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 1715, located at 5101 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is the latest in the string of specific plan applications for the Oak. If you've driven by it, you've seen it's getting very close for most of the structures to be completed. This is for a piece of the screening associated with the hotel. If you'll recall, the hotel is actually inward facing, which is a great opportunity for that public space within the development. But what it means is that back end of a hotel faces Pennsylvania Avenue. So what we're seeking to do is create something that is more pleasing and artistic to shield that mechanical and other units. Staff has recommended approval as it's consistent with the PUD. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Powers, this is your ward.
Thank you. I don't have anything in my packet that tells me what it actually looks like. Do we have an elevation
Yep.
of it, or? Sorry. And the materials are what exactly?
I think it's a combination of metal panels and posts and perhaps some masonry. There you go. That's a better image.
Okay, okay.
So that, you can see where Pottery Barn is, so you'd be almost kind of in the, just on property from the intersection of Northwest Highway in Pennsylvania, looking what would be, I guess, south-southwest. So rather than have the unattractive piece of the back end of a hotel, our goal, consistent with if you've walked the site, you've seen they've gone pretty heavy on artistic elements within the development, and so that's consistent with what you see here.
So I'm a little less happy about that particular view of it. I don't know why, but it looks like, coated cyclone fencing or something. I actually have a high level of confidence that the folks that have put as much time, money, and effort into the development of this site as they have are going to make it look lovely. So I don't have a problem with it. Is there anybody here who wants to be heard on this? I didn't think so. If anybody else has any comments or questions, or if not, I'll move approval.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Powers to approve PUD 1715, specific plan 11. And I'll just add for the record that staff's review of the specific plan for the development indicates the proposal is consistent with PUD 1715 master design statement as amended in the master development plan. Just need a second. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please vote verbally. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. That item passes. Item 4.
This is PUD 1715-SP12, application for a specific plan pursuant to approval of PUD 1715, located at 2131 Northwest 50th Street.
Good afternoon, I'm Chad Bullock, I represent GNS Cameron, my associate, and we're seeking approval to install channel letters on the Williams-Sonoma building and a few other signs on the exterior.
Okay. Commissioner Powers, this is also Ward 2.
So I just want to be really clear about this. We're talking about the lettering on the building.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is consistent with their, I assume, normal sign package. If you've seen Williams-Sonoma places, other places. Is that correct?
Say again.
Is this just their normal sign package? This is what they use for their...
Nationwide, it's pretty similar, yes.
Most of the heavy lifting on these kinds of issues was done on the front end of this process, so I'm fine with it. Is there anybody else who wants to be heard with it? No? Well, if not, then I will move approval.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Powers to approve specific plan 12, PUD 1715. And again, I'll note for the record, staff's review of the specific plans for the development indicates the proposal is consistent with PUD 1715 master design statement as amended in the master development plan. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please vote verbally.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.
SPUD 1643 is an application to rezone 2421 Southwest 112th Street from R1 to SPUD 1643.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. You may recall this application was deferred, I believe, about a month ago, and then again 2 weeks ago, to allow for Mr. Newman, Councilperson Hinkle, and the HOA folks to get together. What the result of it was, we added language to the SPD that says, said ADU shall be limited to the existing attached single-family dwelling unit, and occupants of the ADU shall be limited to immediate family members of the owner of the primary house. My understanding is that satisfied Councilman Hinkle as well as the HOA folks. There are no TEs. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Newman?
Is there anyone signed up?
No.
Okay. We did have lengthy conversations on the specific topic. I know it's a little bit of controversy with ADU discussions going on, but this seemed to be the happy place where everyone was satisfied and their interests were protected. So I'd be curious if there was any other questions or comments from other commissioners. If not, I'm going to make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1643.
We have a motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval of City Council of approval of SPUD 1643. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please vote verbally.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.
This is case PC 10943, application to rezone 2103 South Missouri Avenue from R1 and AE2 overlay zone to I2 moderate industrial and AE2.
Hello. I'm looking to rezone this from R1 to I2. It's a little under half an acre lot. It's currently surrounded by a number of I2 properties around it. It's, from what I can tell, I just purchased it a few months ago, but from what I can tell, it had recently had kind of a rundown trailer on it, kind of a homeless camp it looked like out there. So I'm hoping to rezone it, build a warehouse on it, and have it be I2.
And can we just get your name and address for the record?
Sorry, Jason Garter,
Okay.
and 4608 Northeast 93rd Place, Oklahoma City, 73131.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Garter. Mr. Privet, this is your ward.
Yeah, that's fine. I really didn't see any issues on this being next to I-2. If we have anybody that's signed up to speak, I'd like to hear from them. If
No,
not,
I do not.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move approval of PC 10943. Hey, I got a button.
Oh,
There we go.
all right. We have a motion
We're back into
to recommend approval of item PC 10943. It's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7.
This is case PUD 2009, application to rezone 2014 Southwestern Avenue from R1, I2, and SRODD.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Mark Zitzow. This is a part of the Wheeler District. So if you are familiar with it, Wheeler, as it currently exists, is west of Western. My client owns the land to the east of Western, except for what is now a vacant kind of industrial use. So in an effort to long-term plan, we are now coming back for a new PUD that matches and mirrors the regulations contained within the original PUD. I trust that you've all read through the entirety of all of the development regulations and the PUD and have no questions. It is worth noting that we did appear before the soon-to-be defunct Scenic River Overlay Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval of this, and we are happy to receive the same from you if you are so willing.
Commissioner Govine, this is Ward 6.
Thank you. Yes, I have reviewed with the applicant, was happy to see Riverfront Design Committee approved. I'm in support of continuing the Wheeler District PUD across Western. I understand this is not part of the case, but I just wanted to mention my support of the traffic circles on Western and those calming measures to the city. I understand that's being studied. It conforms with the new sign code, so I'm in support and would open it up if there's any other questions or comments.
Your support of the traffic circle is greatly appreciated.
As well as this case, but
I
traffic
intend to
circle
vote
would be
no just to keep from gaving unanimous approval, but I think that this is a really awesome project, and I'm so glad to see it continue. And it's really cool to have this in Oklahoma City, and I hope it just continues.
agreed. Well, I will move to recommend approval of PUD 2009.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend approval of City Council of PUD 2009. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Item 8.
Item 8 is PUD 1658, application to rezone 3751 Southwest 15th Street from PUD 1417 SRODD and AE2.
Good afternoon, George Marquez, Civil and Environmental Consultants. 4700 Gallardia Parkway. We're here for SPUD 1658. We've read through the staff report and are in agreement with the TEs in the staff report, so we are seeking approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Meek, this is Ward 3.
Yes, sir. I met with the applicant and everything, this is 25 duplexes on 3.76 acres. Give me 1 second. Yeah, the density's good. It's below the multifamily recommendation. And so do we have anyone signed up to speak regarding this case?
We do not, and I'll just add that we do have, this went before the Riverfront Design Committee
Yes.
and received a recommendation from them.
Yes, sir, that does always help. If there's no other commissioner comments, I'm ready to make a recommendation.
I think we're looking for a motion.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1658.
Commissioner Meek motions to recommend approval of item SPUD 1658. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. And that item passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good luck.
it. Thank you.
Takes us to item 9.
This is PUD 2024, application to rezone 11,001 North Coltrane Road from AA.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who's also here with us, Mr. Jeff Van Hoos, as well as Mark Zitzow. You may recall this item had no written protest, but 2 individuals did show up at the last time, and so at the request of Commissioner Pennington, we did defer the item to allow for meetings to take place. Mr. Garrett, who's also with the development team, was able to meet with several of them. And then, as luck would have it, Mr. Van Hoos actually lives in Stone Mill, and so much to his delight, he had several meetings on his front porch, in his living room, and in various places within his home to discuss this at length. So, if you recall, what we are proposing is a duplex development, and if you look at the surrounding area, I think it's worth kind of walking through what we are around. PUD 429, which is south of us, and then the C3 to our east, that is all part of Frontier City. To the south is kind of a boneyard, for lack of a better term, for Frontier City to put old equipment. Frontier City itself is to the east, and then you see that C4. That C4 is part of the parking lot for Frontier City. If this was expanded a little further, you would see a mobile home park north of that, and then you'd see another duplex development north of that. East of that duplex development is a recently approved multifamily development. A lot of the discussion from the 2 people you heard was about density. Our opinion is at just over 10 units an acre for a duplex development, given proximity to the highway, given what's around us, that the density is absolutely appropriate. We did modify the site plan and modify the regs from the original rendition to satisfy all fire-related access requirements, and that's the exhibit you now see before you. We also modified the side yard setbacks, we modified the front yard setbacks, so we think we've done everything we can to try to make this as compatible with the surrounding area as it can be. It is worth noting Stone Mill is barely visible on the screen before you. There is some 300 feet or so of land not owned by my client between this development and Stone Mill. There are 3 TEs. TE number 1 we don't agree to. We have a specific development product type that we're seeking to utilize here, and the minimum lot size is what we want as prescribed in the SPUD. 2 we are good with if we add the word or drive. And then TE3, we are not in agreement to stub because this will be a private gated neighborhood. So stubbing to the north and south typically makes no sense when it's a private gated neighborhood. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval.
Mr. Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate all the effort over the last few weeks. I know there have been a lot of meetings, so I appreciate Jeff and Pat having a lot of conversations with neighbors about this. I'm sure, are there a few neighbors signed up to speak? We have one. I do want to hear from them. Before we do, I do want to be clear about a few things because I think sometimes context is helpful. One, I know that there were extensive agreements that happened between the applicant and, David, can you come back just one second? I know there were a lot of conversations and a lot of things that were agreed to. And I want to make sure that our neighbor, whoever is signed up to speak, and our neighbors who are watching, we sent out a summary of changes to the neighborhood, and I promised one of the neighbors that I would make sure that at this meeting, I asked to confirm that the items that were agreed to are in fact in the changes to the MDS. So that sidewalks are now required, that the vehicular access language has changed to note that they can accommodate school buses and emergency vehicles, that the pervious paving's been removed, that the front yard setbacks have been changed to 20 feet,
Yes, sir.
that the side yard setbacks have been changed to 5 feet, and that the site plan shows that the gated entry meets the fire code, which you already talked about, David. And you changed the dimensions on the site plan, so to show the changes. I'm okay with the change in lot size, especially since it's its own private gated community. I am also, as my fellow commissioners know, I'm a strong advocate for the connectivity. I think in light of what the conditions to the south are, and that it's industrial, it's appropriate to not be interconnected. I think the northern access, I would imagine that our neighbors for a little further north are a lot happier if we don't actually street stub. And in the spirit of the compromises that have been made, I'm willing to let that go in exchange for this agreement to go forward. I know it doesn't solve every single problem that people have, but I think it's great when we can get 2/3 of the way there. I'd say that's pretty good. So I wanted our neighbor, whoever signed to speak, to get the chance to hear what the compromises are that have been heard, so that might inform their comments before they come up to the podium. So I'm ready to hear from our neighbor.
Okay, no, I thank you for that. Robbie Wheeler.
Thank you very much. My name's Robbie Wheeler, and I live at 12108 Grand Cedar Lane, and I did get your response to that, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. My biggest concern was the traffic study and what's going on, and I have a couple of pictures I did bring for you if I can hand them, because I couldn't, of course, send them into you. I'm just concerned with the stress it's going to put on the community as far as the traffic goes, and I know that Mr. Box has talked about all the setbacks, but one thing I was most concerned about was the setback on the entrance for the bus come in and go, fire trucks, those kind of things. You'll see in the pictures that I gave you, Oakdale Park, that's just barely north of there, has a very good setback of 2 to 3 car lengths to be able to enter and exit without it being obstructed. On Coltrane, and then farther north is the other duplex that he was referencing, area, and it has very little setback. And I drive to work down that road every day, and I see kids standing out in the street waiting on the bus. And so I'm wondering and wanting to make sure, because I know in Oakdale Park, the bus is able to pull and go through. It is not in the neighborhood that is right north of there. And so I'm very concerned about the traffic, what it's going to do. There have been a couple of fatalities on that road because of the curves, and I've seen the traffic increase drastically in the last 4 years since I've lived in that area. So that was my main concern that I wanted to hear back about today on that.
Great.
Okay.
I think I'm an attorney, I am not an engineer, so we're going to call the experts up and let them tell us
Well, and I
about-
love that y'all brought
Yeah.
up traffic, because
Yeah.
that's literally what I came to talk about. Is safety in the area and the traffic flow and what's going on, if there's a traffic study coming up on that.
Excellent. Maybe, so I know that, so we did have a discussion about the fact that the entrance needed to be able to accommodate emergency vehicles and school buses. And so my understanding is that modification's been made. So I don't know if you all want to say anything further to,
It has. So we meet all engineering requirements, we meet all fire access requirements.
so it is able to accommodate the school bus being able to pull in, which was an issue when we were talking before, and that's one of the agreements that were made. Now, on the traffic in general, I know that there's a huge dip, from the side of the road. There's not any shoulder, at least not consistently, along Coltrane. This is one of those moments where, unfortunately, when there is development of the roads in Oklahoma City, this 620 square mile city, usually follows where there is more people. So actually by bringing more people to this street increases the likelihood that through the next GO bond, we might be able to get renovations to the street to widen the street to accommodate the fact that there are now more people there. So that's the goal is, okay, now that we have more people here, it can get more attention to get better infrastructure development. So share your concern, but I think we can hope that that will be the case.
The site plan that's being displayed is incorrect again. The correct one's been submitted, but just in case there's an error or issue with city clerk, what is officially submitted with the city shows the entry gate. We don't believe that one does. It's a boulevard entry right here. So I just want to make sure the record's clear.
And that will,
This, which
that
is-
accommodates the ability for
Yes.
the, okay,
And it's
for the
submitted.
emergency vehicles
It's just, it's not that one.
great. And I know it's been changing fast too, so that makes it hard to follow when things are moving really fast and there's been a lot of side conversations and then I think my email was sent at the end of last week maybe, so it's been a while since neighbors may have seen the most recent rendering. So appreciate you being here. And of course, these conversations are going to continue as this proposal goes on to City Council in a few weeks. So if there's nothing else from commissioners, I'd like to make the motion. I'm ready to make the motion.
I think we're ready.
Okay. I'd like to move to recommend approval of PUD 2024 to City Council, subject to the elimination of TE1, the modification of TE2 to add or drives after street, and then the elimination of TE3.
I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend approval to City Council, PUD 2024, subject to the amended technical evaluations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Thank you. Item 10.
This is SPUD 1650, application to rezone 10807 Southwest 29th Street from PUD 1976 NAA.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow, Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you is a piece of a plat that was approved at the last Planning Commission meeting. Our client is seeking to do a neighborhood-style commercial development. If you recall, the rest of this project is a mix of duplex and various width and depth single-family homes. And so what this client is seeking to do is to prove that in the suburbs you can create a walkable community. And as part of that project, he wants to do a neighborhood-scale commercial development at the entry where he's bringing the buildings up toward the street at the entry to create what he believes to be a holistic, walkable community. And so this SPUD adds in some light commercial uses. We restrict vehicular access only off of our internal street network. Staff has requested 1 TE, which I think in most cases has been deemed not applicable based on information that's been provided from Public Works. This particular client on this case is willing to agree with a modification, and that is to strike or impervious paving. Our paving is within 100 feet, but the buildings are not, and this site plan is tied down, so he is comfortable with this TE subject to the removal of or impervious paving. We're also happy to strike it if that is the will of the commission.
Commissioner Meek, this is Ward 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've spoke with the applicant regarding this, and we have seen this before. It was flipped, wasn't it? Didn't the first time it came in, it was laid out a little different than this?
Yeah, I think there was a building that fronted 29th a little bit more that we pushed toward the corner.
Okay, yeah, I thought it had changed a little bit. And actually, I like that the parking lot comes off the neighborhood entry and not out on the Southwest 29th there. Do we have anyone sign up to speak regarding this?
No, I do not.
Okay. I'm fine with the change to TE, removing the impervious paving. And do any other commissioners have any comments regarding this case? Okay.
Doesn't look like it.
All right. With that said, I'll like to recommend approval of SPUD 1650 with TE number 1 changing to read, "No buildings shall be permitted within 100 feet of the floodway of the tributary of Mustang Creek located within the spud site."
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Meek to recommend approval of City Council of SPUD 1615, subject to the amended technical evaluation. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11.
This is SPUD 1660, application to rezone 17516 Northwestern Avenue from SPUD 1333.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a commercial SPUD that would allow for a doggy daycare. One of the things we obviously worry about with doggy daycares would be proximity to residential. Where this is located is across the street, and the outdoor play area would, of course, be on the east side of the building, where we would be bordered by a church and an oil facility. And then if you saw an aerial, it's a lot of trees and I believe a creek. So there's really no residential anywhere close to this. There is one TE we agreed to. TE, we'd asked to add a TE number 2 that would revise the screening to allow up to a 10-foot fence, just out of an abundance of caution based upon the doggy daycare use. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Noble, this is Ward 8.
Yes, and we've reviewed the application, and in the application it says it's going to be a golf training center.
So that's what it is now.
Okay.
It was, the people that rezoned it originally did it for a golf performance training center, and I guess everybody became so skilled and talented at golf they no longer had a client base. So
Found the need for a dog daycare.
now we need dogs.
Yep, love those. I have no problem with it. Did anyone sign up to speak?
No.
Any other commissioners have anything? No. With that, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1660,
Subject to
subject to the TE number 1.
And then
And the
adding TE2.
And add TE2.
All right. I have a motion from
the
Commissioner
10-foot
Noble to recommend
fence.
approval of SPD 1660, subject to the amended technical evaluations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12.
This is SPUD 1659, application to rezone 1900 North Martin Luther King Avenue from R1, R3, and HNO.
Do we have an applicant present? Delania Lowe? All right, we're going to move this to the end of the docket. We'll revisit
Well,
that.
we still want, maybe we should wait to hear from it, see if this person shows up, but staff's recommendation was a continuance, and I'm strongly in support of that continuance in light of the lack of clarity about the request. So, is it appropriate for us to just go ahead and continue it, or should we put it to the end of the agenda?
Did the applicant believe it was just being continued?
Well, there's been outreach attempts by staff.
Yeah, Sarah Welch, Planning Department. We just haven't had contact with the applicant, and so if Mr. Pennington hasn't either until today, it might be safest just to put it to the end just in case,
Okay,
and then defer it then.
cool.
Okay. All right, we'll move that to the end. So we'll go ahead, move to item 13.
This is SPUD 1661, application to rezone 2200 Northwest 12th Street and 1215 North Barnes Avenue from R2.
Charles Allen, Allen Engineering. This is a 7,000 square foot, 2 lots, 50 by 140. Looking to rezone this to allow the development of a duplex on the south end of the property. It is a, you see that? 2-story duplex with a garage, single car garage and parking in front of the garage. The site plan shows 5 parking spaces. They'll probably add one for the house, the existing house on the north there at 2200 Northwest 12th Street. The existing house is a 2-story, 1-bathroom house, I think 1,000 square feet. I think there was one email of a protest to address parking, so happy to answer any questions.
We didn't get it.
Commissioner Govine, this is Ward 6.
Thank you. Yeah, are you okay with the TE that staff has proposed of garages shall be set back at least 18 feet from the back
Yes.
sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're adding a sidewalk along 12th Street also, so.
Right.
There's an existing sidewalk on Barnes.
Good, yeah, no, I was okay with the lot split. It's an existing single-family, which is proposed to remain in the application, adds one duplex as an infill project. It's a corner lot, consistent with other housing types of duplexes in the adjacent blocks and on the street. Meets density ranges for the site. I didn't have any concerns. I did read the protest letter from Mr. Asif about the parking. I believe that you've adequately addressed parking for the duplexes, with each one having the ability to park 2 cars off-street without blocking the sidewalk. So any other questions from others? Anyone signed up to speak?
Does not appear so, and no one signed up to speak.
Okay. I will move to recommend approval of SPUD 1661.
Subject to technical.
Subject to the TE number 1, as written.
A motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1661. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. Good luck. Item 14.
This is SPUD 1664, application to rezone 1912 Northwest 12th Street and from R2 to SPUD 1664.
Good afternoon, Adam Landman, 718 West Sheridan. So this is all existing on the site. We got with Development Services and Planning and found out that because of some permit not being pulled within the last 2 years, we need to apply for a SPUD. So the owner's applying for a SPUD to renovate the small fourplex that's sitting behind the existing duplex. There are several TEs in here. A couple of those are language adjustments. The parking we agree with. We're happy to set a minimum on that. And yeah, deleting the home sharing, we're fine with that as well. So if you guys had any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Govine, this is you again.
Okay, thank you. So you are okay with the TEs as
written, yeah.
Proposed?
I think we need to specify actually how many parking spaces, and it's 1 per unit. There'll be a total of 9 units on the site, and there are 11 parking spaces with the garage parking, so.
And so, yeah, this one seems it's a little funky, but as you noted, these are all existing structures that they're trying to renovate what they have and bring them into compliance. So based on that, I'm in support. TE3 is quite a bit of language. Staff has written it. I assume it's for a good reason, and the applicants agreed to it, so I don't need to talk about it any further, I don't think.
I was told it's new language that's going to be coming from Public Works.
It's a standard statement that should have been in our template.
There we go.
It just needs to be in the MDS. Okay, gotcha. Anyone signed up to speak?
No.
I have a question.
By all means.
I may have missed it. What is currently out of compliance, and do we know how it got there?
Yeah, so we can't get a permit to renovate the building, basically, because it's zoned R2, even though there's a sitting fourplex sitting right behind it. And so it's just sitting there. The city explained to me, Development Services explained to me that if any kind of permit had been pulled on this property in the last 2 years, we wouldn't have to go through this process at all. But since he hasn't done anything to the property in the last 2 years that needed a permit, we wound up needing to rezone.
I guess I'm just trying to making sure someone did not intentionally get out of compliance so that they could now force us into getting them into compliance. I may not be following enough of how we got here, but I don't want to encourage people to, hey, I'm out of compliance, so you got to make me in compliance.
No, that's a good point.
I thought it was just a non-conforming structure, like the structure doesn't conform with the current zoning. So it is like it's an old building, old buildings, right?
That's the exact word Development Services used with me. It's a non-conforming structure existing on the site. There are gas meters to it. This was the previous use. It just hasn't been in use. And that's as far as they got.
And this is,
I did look at it's got a 20-foot alley, paved alley behind it, so there's a 0-foot setback off the alley.
Yeah, because of the setback. Sure, yeah, it's tight.
I'm going to trust Commissioner Govine on this one.
I will move to recommend approval of SPUD 1660.
Subject to technical evaluation.
Subject to the 4 technical evaluations as written.
We have a motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend approval of SPUD 1664. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes.
Thanks.
That's unanimous. Good luck. Item 15.
This is SPUD 1665, application to rezone 1728 Northwest 13th Street from R2.
Good afternoon, Klaus Ryman Phillip on behalf of Brady Smith of Bemis Homes. And we are seeking a SPUD to rezone this lot to allow for a couple small single-family homes and a triplex on the corner, basically. And we got staff comments back. There was one TE. We had a drive originally shown that was, frankly, wider than I would have liked to. So we reworked the plan a little bit, got with staff, and maybe staff can comment on this as well. But I'm proposing an alternate drive arrangement, reducing the drive that you see on the north to a typical like 18-foot drive for 2 cars. Yeah, there you go. And then having a 10-foot drive coming off Gatewood to provide that extra parking spot for the 3rd unit. So yeah, that's a proposal in a nutshell. Let me know if you have any questions.
All right, Commissioner Govine, you're popular.
Yes, this one, North Gatewood Avenue at this block is a kind of a unique right-of-way. It's very narrow. The buildings are set very close to the street. So these being more dense and closer to the street did not feel out of character to me. There's apartments immediately to our south, a number of other duplex developments. They meet the base parking standards. Similar to the last case, this will add sidewalks on this section of the development where they don't currently exist, so I think that was a good thing. I wanted to ask if staff is still recommending approval with the revised drive arrangement, and it added 1 drive on North Gatewood in order to narrow up the drive off of 13th.
I think that we are bringing it to you for your consideration. If you do decide that 3 are okay and that 10 foot's the max, 10
yeah,
or 12.
we could add that. I think right now it just has number of drives. It doesn't, and then it says, I think 25-foot width max. But we'd be happy to, specify that further. Maybe, drives off Northwest 13th be 20-foot max, and any drives off North Gatewood be 10-foot max or something.
Our suggestion was that the driveway on 13th be limited to 20 feet, which is similar to the Gatewood UCD, which they're not in, but we're using that. And then if 3 drives are approved off of Gatewood, then you'll need to add a TE to allow the 3. Right now, the maximum is 2 drives, 12 feet wide.
Okay. Well, I'm open this up for discussion, but I personally would support the limiting the drive on one single drive off of Northwest 13th to 20 feet max, and allowing the 3 drives on North Gatewood Avenue at 10 feet maximum as depicted in the conceptual site exhibit. And so I think we could get the TE language straight on that. But are there other questions, comments, or Anyone signed up to speak? I didn't receive any protests. on
No,
this.
no one signed up to speak.
I like your suggestion.
Okay. Well, I will move to recommend approval of SPUD 1665, subject to TE number 1, and we will add a sentence to that that states there shall be a maximum of 3 drives off of North Gatewood Avenue at a maximum of 10 feet in width.
Are we fine with that just being added to TE1, or does it need to be a separate TE?
We'll just make it a TE number 2 if that's okay, because since
Okay.
it's an addition.
Yes, agree.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend approval of SPUD 1665, subject to the amended technical evaluations. And it's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. Are we waiting on anyone? And that is unanimous. Thank you and good luck. Item 16.
This is PUD 2016, application to rezone 5900 Wildwood Drive from PUD 1842.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you is a case that's been deferred about 2 months. During that time, we've had 2 neighborhood meetings and have sent back multiple revisions and red lines to the neighbors. I believe there are some folks here that will want to address this. We received a letter, I believe yesterday, that asked for a 90-day deferral due to an inefficiency or inability to properly reach out to the neighborhood and connect, and they questioned the outreach that's been done. But we've had 2 neighborhood meetings. It was their scheduled HOA meetings that we attended, and we talked through this project and another one. And so we feel we've made a number of changes we feel are sufficient to further make this project compatible. So before you on this board is the site plan. We're proposing 2 tracts within this PUD. Tract 1 being R1 single-family zoning. This piece of the project is a bit unique in that it's tucked pretty far into the northeast corner of the property. And so what the design team sought was something that was much more compatible and congruent with the adjacent neighborhood. So we have 1 drive off of Wildwood that will service the entire single-family section of the development. Tract 2, we're asking for multifamily, and we've put a density cap on that. But this is the project that's proposed. We believe it's compatible. I do quickly want to address the existing PUD. We rezoned this a couple years ago to multifamily, single family, and townhomes. And so from comparing PUD 1842 to PUD 2016, which is what's before you today, we're here because we're seeking a slight increase in density, but we've increased the setbacks, we've increased our landscaping requirements, we've increased the buffers, we've increased the setbacks, we've matched the screening, we've matched specific plans, we've matched the height requirements, and we further limited construction traffic to come off of Wildwood Plaza, which is the new road that ODOT built as part of the service road expansion. So we've done everything we could to address the neighbors' comments. I know that there's still concern about traffic flow, particularly about the single-family neighborhood. We're tying into a public street, and what you can see on your screen right here is the Wildwood neighborhood has multiple access points to 63rd. And while it's not a traditional grid, it has grid-like characteristics in that the traffic can disperse through so that not all traffic would necessarily go out to one intersection. But there's about 40 lots within the single-family portion here that would go through that. There is no access through the multifamily back into the single-family development to prevent that traffic from going north. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval today.
Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say thank you, Mark. I know you've been to a lot of meetings, and I appreciate that. Appreciate your willingness to go visit with neighbors. And I also want to say a special thanks to our neighbors who are here, and I know we're going to hear from them, but I really want to thank Mr. and Ms. Hooks, who have probably spent more time with me in the last like, I don't know, like 2 weeks talking to me than you probably ever wanted to. Y'all probably never talk to me again as soon as we get this proposal taken care of, but I appreciate your diligence and all of your support. I have shared before that there are many concerns that we've had and we're working through on this. My number one concern is the fact that my mother-in-law lives in the neighborhood. So before anyone comes to the podium and says that they are concerned about my personal stake in it is, but the happiness of my mother-in-law is very important. But I think that the really important conversation to have with our neighbors, and I've shared this in the conversations that I've been able to have with many of them, is this is not a debate about whether or not we will have development in this area. It is a question of whether this newly proposed development is an improvement over what has already been passed and is law currently. I am encouraged by the fact that we've increased the single family in this proposal from the previous one. I'm pleased by the fact that we've increased the buffers, that we've increased the landscaping. I think those are all things that are headed in the right direction. I do believe that there are neighbors who are interested in having further conversations and believe that that they would like to include more people in the neighborhood. And so I would strongly encourage the commission to consider another delay to continue those conversations, and let's bring it back to something that all of the neighbors can be supportive of. I really feel like we've made a lot of great progress, and again, I appreciate Mark and his team's efforts to be very communicative and be supportive of this process. But it is iterative, you know? You do the best you can to try to get as many neighbors together. And so I know that they're here, and I'd love to hear their concerns so that you all can hear them as well, but that's just what's on my mind is, can we ensure that there is full knowledge and support of the community as we're moving forward? So that's all my opening comments.
Okay. We do have someone signed up to speak, Ms. Hooks. I believe she's speaking on behalf of the neighborhood. Are we ready to hear from her? Okay.
My name is Victoria Hooks, and I am here today to, as a stakeholder in the process and a resident of the Wildwood Hills and Heights neighborhood. I lived in the community for 23 years. Our neighborhood association has been incorporated for over 50 years, and it is uniquely occupied on both sides of 63rd, on the north side and the south side. We are zoned as a low density resident area with about 15 streets, approximately 450 single homes and duplexes. The current master design statement for the corridor project is dated April 19, 2024, and was revised on May 2nd, 2024, May 29th, 2024, and July 26th of 2024. As a neighborhood association and community partner, did not become actively involved until the days before the first hearing in July. We do not believe we had accurately included in the zoning process. After contacting the OKC Planning Commission and Department, we were told that the notice was giving only to neighbors that was 300 feet of the proposed site. We believe zoning changes of any part of Wildwood Hills Heights neighborhood impacts the whole entire neighborhood, not just a few residents. We all have invested interest in our property. Any changes may impact our quality of life as far as traffic, safety, noise, increased taxes, decreased taxes, to just name a few. By time the neighborhood association was aware of PUD 2016 request zones, it had already been scheduled for a hearing. We requested time to review and participate in the public meetings And we also wanted to hear regarding the proposed changes, which were why we are here today. In addition of the PDU 2016, the latest advised that they have another pending PDU 2019 pending as well. We were only informed of that PDU, which is because it's not in the area, we just found out about that. And so it's about the noise, music, and partying because it's a wedding chapel, which will impact us. Cole Gardens is about 0.7 miles away from our neighborhood, and we don't need another wedding venue. Permission used to develop allows this to function as a daycare, also as a community rec center, and property owner association and community recreation. This will also would have allowed them to function outside of some of the more restricted codes and regulations regarding the hours of operation, playing loud music as they want, or at all hours of the night. We hear a lot of music from the concerts at the Zoo Amphitheater, but technically it is not in our area either. Our councilwoman, Nikki Nice, has said for herself was not clear about the two pending PUDs. We share our concerns at our last meeting and since has been revised. The property owners have failed to mow the grass on the property for years. They did not demonstrate any interest in being a good neighbor, and we have no expectations that they will be any different after building. We believe in effective outreach of our ineffective outreach of our neighborhood association that omit us to create barriers and assess the zoning process, making decision. The Oklahoma City Planning Commission sure must have the zoning policies and procedures regarding in the zoning, including people. We are the people that request the participation and allow us time to mobilize and to be heard. We have a long history of property owners and developers who sometimes are one or in the same, want to develop in our neighborhood or near our neighborhood or both. It might be helpful if the planning department provides us all the PDUs in our area over the last 20 to 25 years. This is a lot of information buried in these PDUs and deserve to be adequate time to read and process. And by considering, have since notice and we formally requested. So we have requested things, and we need to see what's going on. So we really would like to get a delay in their plan so we can go more in detail about what the PDUs are.
All right.
Or PUDs, I'm sorry. Y'all understood.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we would like to get a delay in that so we can, a lot of my neighbors didn't even know. I talked to a lady Tuesday and it's impacting her and she had no idea what was going on. We have a lot of neighbors that work. We have a lot of older neighbors that cannot make it, and I don't think that they have really reached out to talk to them.
Okay. We will consider that in our discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I have a question for you before you left. And just for me, what was it that you would like to see on this property? Other than single-family homes?
Property, you know, it's already zoned for single-family homes. I just think I would just rather be the single-family homes. I don't want an apartment building with 500. We have apartment buildings already around our neighborhood. And I don't, just right across from us, we can see Lincoln. And that's 750 units already. And then they just built some more apartments up on Wilshire. So I don't think we need apartments. We don't really care about the single-family homes being built, but the apartments is just way too much.
Okay, even though they don't attach to your neighborhood in any way?
Say what?
They don't attach to your neighborhood? There's no access through the
It doesn't attach to our
neighborhood?
neighborhood, but they will be using our streets like Santa Fe.
I don't think they
and,
can get to the apartment complex from the neighborhood, can they?
Huh?
No, I was just asking the
Oh,
developer.
okay.
I didn't think there was a way to get from the neighborhood streets into the apartments. I thought they were
It's
separated.
Santa Fe that they would be using, and Santa Fe is just right next to our neighborhood. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
just
Santa
right
Fe's
there.
a major
And then
thoroughfare.
it's Braniff, and Braniff will be opened up with the, I believe 44, when they get through with the project, it will be opened up into our neighborhood.
The service?
The service road.
The service road will
I
connect?
believe so. I believe it will be going up Braniff.
I don't know. Okay, Mark's saying yes.
It will. You can see it now. It's almost done. So,
So Braniff basically becomes the service road as it comes around to tie back into 63rd?
Right, so I'd like to address a couple points, but just sticking on the streets, what you'll see when the service road is done is Braniff will tie in, but this tract of land is not accessing any of those streets. It would access it through the service road, and that then ties around to Santa Fe. So we're not taking direct access to it, but this property has access to a service road, which then has access to all other public streets.
Yeah, but the connection is not your doing, regardless of whether there was this development, right? That's not a related thing, Braniff's connection to the service road, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
However, I want to be sure, but the apartments would use, coming from the west, can they go from the south end of Santa Fe into the apartment? Or you've got to come down from 63rd down Braniff?
You'd have to come down Santa Fe or Braniff from the south to the service road and then go east to access this property.
Santa Fe does connect to the service road down on the south, or will?
Yes, the service road will tie into Santa Fe. That'll be the
Okay,
main.
because that picture right there, it's not there, but that will connect, okay.
Correct.
But people could, if for some reason they prefer, go down Braniff instead of Santa Fe, okay.
Correct.
It would be a slow,
And so
it'd be a
I
slow
think it's
way.
worth noting, the current PUD allows multifamily. 522 units are allowed today on that property. And then in terms of the mowing, the moment that was brought up in that initial meeting, the current developer has mowed it weekly. We have photos, we could provide those if it's needed. But when it was brought up that there were concerns about the condition of the property, it has been mowed since that's been brought up. At the end of the day, I think what we're proposing is a better product than what's permitted today. If where we're at in this process is any reduction in density makes this application null and void. We can build it if we reduce the density. The increased density really comes from the single-family tract of the plus or minus 40 single-family homes that are in this tract. That's about the increase in density we're seeking. So we've taken a bit more of a sprawling apartment townhome development, and I'll show you the picture of what's allowed today, and then show you the proposed project. Today, this is what can be built, and this was shown to the neighbors at a neighborhood meeting. It was 45 feet in height. That's still what we're asking for, but it's sprawled throughout the entirety of the project. So townhomes and multifamily were permitted. What we've sought is to condense the multifamily into a smaller tract and then expand the single family. So in doing so, we've significantly increased the buffers from 15 feet to 50, where tract 2 abuts the single-family homes. Further, I know there were concerns just about height. This is a crude image that we put together just today, but this property was the old borrow pit when they filled in Belle Isle Lake to build the Walmart and Belle Isle station. So when they did that, this property was left in a pretty poor state in that there were large holes left in the ground, and they removed a lot of dirt. So when you're at their streets and at their residences, you're not going to look out and look up and see 3 stories of apartments. It drops off significantly. There's a grade change of almost 60 feet from their backyards to the service road. So what this is showing is as you step away from their fence, it's going to continue to get lower. So, we feel we've made quite a few concessions to alleviate their concerns, specifically in regard to the buffers, those yellow shaded areas. That's the 50-foot buffer with 15 feet of additional planting or tree preservation. And so with that, if a deferral is what we need to do, we're happy to do it, or we're happy to continue meeting with them prior to city council. But we've held 2 meetings. You know, there's only so much that we can do to get people to come to the meetings. If they've chosen to this point not to come, and they haven't reached out, they haven't called, they haven't sent us emails, we don't know who they are and who to talk to.
Mark, have you held 2 meetings in the last 30 days, in the last 60 days? How much time?
I'd have to go back and look. It's probably within 60 days.
2 months.
It's definitely within 60 days. I don't believe they were within 30 of each other.
Ma'am, if you'd like to speak all out, but you'll need to come to the podium and you'll need to fill out a form.
I did submit a written request, July on that first meeting, and I didn't think I'd have.
Please come to the podium. We need to record your comments for the record.
Number one, when I hear a statement that this current plan is better than the plan that is in existence approved, I disagree with that, because they could call the one that's on the books now a unique development. It had a boulevard, it had trees, it had office buildings. It matched what you're supposed to do in an urban low intensity. You're supposed to provide employment, transportation stuff for the folks. My question, and I'm gonna cut it short, on an urban low intensity type plan, it says if you have more than 50 units, you're supposed to have 2 ways to get in, right? Yes, I'm reading from your plan. Subdivisions with more than 50 units should have at least 2 points of interest. Egress, no closer than 300 feet apart. This is all going to I-44. That's one entrance. We're not even meeting this requirement. So, help us.
So I can address that. I think the piece of the code that she's referencing is subdivision regulations, which we see and deal with that platting. The single-family neighborhood will likely require an emergency access drive back into the apartments. But we are under 50, but I believe it's 30 units. And so there will have to be an emergency access drive, but no one can access it except for emergency vehicles. In terms of the southern piece, all of those buildings are required to be sprinkled, and we have 2 access points back out onto Wildwood Plaza, is what the street on the south is called. So it's absolutely subjective as to whether someone thinks this project is better. We believe that the increased buffers and the way it's been designed and the amount of open space and common area is a better product, especially when keeping in mind that we've added 40 single-family homes on a large section of the land that would have primarily been townhomes and/or apartments.
Where is the emergency access?
It's not written yet. It'll have to occur right
The emergency access will be on my street on 59th Street. It will go to,
That's not what he's showing.
No. So, I think we need to lean on the applicant on where they're proposing plans. So,
We are not permitted to take any access onto their streets except for this one, I say their streets, the public streets, with the exception of the one entrance point into this neighborhood. So our emergency access drive will have to occur between our 2 tracks. But the only vehicles allowed to use that access point are emergency vehicles. So there will be no through traffic between them because of the concerns raised by the neighbors. In an ideal scenario, we would have absolutely connected these 2 tracks to allow traffic to flow freely, but we know that this particular neighborhood does not want the larger multifamily development and what was formerly multifamily and commercial development going through their neighborhood. So we eliminated that.
And Mark, so I heard you say you're in favor of, or you take a continuance to talk about this again for another 2 weeks. What I don't want to do is relitigate the exact same things that we just talked about today in 2 weeks. So if we can do it today, let's do it today and see where we
I
are.
still think that we should delay it because it's still a lot of neighbors that have not known, and they do need to be. I
Right,
think
but
that we all
it sounds like he came to 2 HOA meetings for your neighborhood.
Yeah, but we just found
60
out
days
about
of
it about
time.
July.
That's a lot of time. I don't know how many more people that you think you need to have at a meeting that's going to make a difference.
Out at the meeting, I just think that they need to be informed. These people do not know. They don't know.
We see this stuff every 2 weeks. And the city notices within 300 feet. It's a standard notice.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't know, and I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. These people work, they have families, they have things that this is going on just like they do.
Yep.
And
so
you
do
have
we,
to
so do
give-
we, everybody in the room. And so, like I said, I just don't want to take 2 weeks and then relitigate the exact same things we're talking about today.
I don't think it'll be I think we could come to a agreement, but they just need to, people just need to know, and I just think that they just need to know, and we don't have enough people in our neighborhood that knows about this. They didn't give us enough time.
Well, I
I don't
think-
feel like they gave us enough time.
When was the last PUD done? Before?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, they knew that there was going to be something developed here. So now they have single-family homes that are going to tie into their neighborhoods rather than apartments. I think it's a great use for the land, and that's what we're here to consider. So that's just my
I had
thoughts.
a question. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a couple different points, and one was about, from the applicant, not addressing connectivity and not connecting the multifamily development through the neighborhood, which makes sense, and I think that is addressing residents' neighbors' concerns. But I also heard a different point about commercial uses and connectivity that almost seem to be a counterpoint to that. So so I had a technical question for the applicant. On the residential R1 development, which would connect into the Wildwood neighborhood, that would be platted, that would be in a future case, is that right?
That's correct. So the R1 single family will be platted, and then the multifamily would come back with a specific plan.
Okay. And then I note that maybe the one connection point is desirable, but have the residents has that been discussed at the neighborhood meetings about that one single point? Is it preferable to actually have more connectivity with the existing Wildwood neighborhood?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of traffic in that area.
Ma'am, this is a question for the applicant.
Right, so there was discussion about the number of access points to Wildwood. There was concern about that, so we limited it to the one that aligns with the existing 60th Street intersection. If it's the will of the commission to have that redesigned and have 2 entrance points, we're happy to do that. At the end of the day, it's the same amount of traffic from that piece of the development going out to the street, whether it's 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple routes out to 63rd, depending on whether you're going east or west, but I'm not trying to create a new issue. I was just wondering if that point was addressed, and you're showing it that way because you're responding to concerns from the neighborhood, or otherwise, because that could also then eliminate the need for any emergency vehicle access via the multifamily development. Would you agree with that, or?
I would, yes. If we can keep the 300-foot separation off the 2, we wouldn't need the emergency access. But in either case, we're amenable to that. And we're not opposed to the deferral. What we would ask if there are any other comments from the Planning Commission that they would like to see addressed, that we can hear those today and incorporate so that we aren't potentially facing another deferral pending the outcome of that meeting.
Well, I'll sum up my comments. With regard to neighborhood connectivity, my personal opinion is that it could be, if it was agreeable to the neighborhoods through a subsequent meeting and conversations, because I think it sounds like there need to be a few more before we vote on this. If it was desirable to have more connectivity, that's what I would be encouraging, as opposed to a neighborhood within a neighborhood that's sort of separate. But again, if you're trying to do what's right, I believe that the applicant has the right things in mind here, so.
Mr. Chairman, what I would say about this is, while I understand your comments that we have to keep in mind sort of what's already permitted as we're thinking about this, to me, this is not really so much a case about whether this is a better or worse project than the one before it. It's really just about whether this project is appropriate for this space. I personally think it is a better project than the one that was before it, but that's because the addition of density here, or the increase in density here, is of the single-family variety. I think for Oklahomans, townhouses kind of read as multifamily, whether they are or not, really. And so a more single-family layout on the property on the northeast side, I think, is helpful here. I love Wildwood neighborhood. It's kind of a little jewel, sits up on top of a hill there. It has wonderful views. And I feel very protective of it, you know, very, very much so. But having said that, there are so many worse possibilities for the property that the apartments are going to sit on. The fact that it's any kind of residential, I think, is a plus. I know a lot of people don't have a good feeling about multifamily residential, but given where this is, I mean, this could have been, and at any point in the last 20 or 25 years, turned into an industrial site. I mean, it was a borrow pit, as you say. It's been kind of carved out. The idea of it being residential seems to me like a plus. I like the idea that it's down lower than the neighborhood, so that what they're actually looking at will be rooftops rather than, you know, buildings looming up in front of them and between them and their views. I guess I don't mean to put Commissioner Pennington on the spot, but I would ask you, I mean, if you believe, you know how I am about neighborhood meetings, I'm a big believer, and I really, really do believe that when people sit down and everybody that's in the room, you know, everybody that needs to be in the room is in the room, you know, that you can get things done. But given sort of where we are and what has transpired so far, I mean, do you feel that there is still room for improvement before this is heard? And if so, let's continue it and, you know, give them the time. I think that they have taken quite a lot of time. They've held quite a lot of meetings. I cannot fault the developer at all for what he's done. The fact that there's not more notice, that's not their fault. We've talked about that many, many, many times. The 300-foot limit is set by state law. And so it's not that they only notified some people because they were trying to keep it away from other people. It just is what it is. It's not satisfactory. We frequently comment on the fact that it would be better if it were better, but it is what it is. So tell me what you think about where we are.
Sure, just a few comments. One, I always make, and I appreciate your comment about my initial statement of making a comparison between PUD 1842 versus this one. But the reason why I always give that characterization, especially for those people who don't spend every twice a month with us, is I want our neighbors to have a clear understanding that saying no to this does not eliminate development in this spot. It doesn't mean it diverts back to single family. And a lot of times in these cases, people automatically think that that's what's going to happen. And it's not true. And I want our neighbors to know that from the very beginning. So that is very important to me. I think as far as, is it possible for us to make some more concessions and inform more neighbors? I do think so. I think there's been a lot of great progress. And Mark, if you don't mind, can you show the height one that you did? Because this was a special request that I made of Mark and his team, because I wanted to be clear to the neighbors who live on 59th Street, what does it look like if you stand in your backyard? So if you show them, would you mind showing them that? And I don't think they've seen that. This is an example of something that I'm saying, that when we're more clear about the buffers, the landscaping, those concerns, is that an improvement over PUD 1842? I think the concessions that we have so far really are. But I respect the fact that our neighbors may have a different view than me about whether commercial development is a better use of the space or any of that. I support the fact that we may not all agree. My concern was about, I know that with the growth of this neighborhood, I like the idea that there's more single family here. I like the fact that if there's going to be development, more housing also means more opportunities for meaningful commercial development in our area in Northeast Oklahoma City. We complain about, because I'm one of them, I complain about restaurants and retail and the need for so many of these things. And frankly, having more housing enables that to be able to happen. And so if you can find ways that we can do it in a respectful way of the character of the neighborhood, then that's what I'm for. And I feel like we've given it a great effort. And again, I appreciate Mark's effort because I know he has done it. I know he showed up. I've asked for a million things, as you've seen from these 1,000 different displays, because I want to be clear with the neighbors about what the impact actually is. And so I think taking 2 weeks, I think we can make a lot of progress. I would certainly be at the forefront. I've talked to Councilwoman Nice. I know that she's willing to join me in having more meetings with the neighbors. And we may not all agree, y'all.
Let me ask a question, please. Okay, if this definition of low-intensity urban says that if you have more than 50 units, you should have at least 2 points of interest, whose responsibility is it to say you have to have 2 points to come into the place? All of that traffic is going out one street.
The neighborhood itself has more than one access.
This development here does not have more than one access.
You're talking about track 2, ma'am, right? You're talking about the
Yes.
apartment complexes, because there's two different things. So the apartment complexes and whether or not they're meeting the city's requirements.
I'm talking about 560 units.
They have 2 accesses.
They have one access.
So if I may.
It's I-44. There's not another one. Show it to me.
2 accesses onto I-44.
We're making 2 access points onto Wildwood Plaza, and what we may or may not do is connect the cul-de-sac back down to the service road. But what makes it different is that this is sprinkled. So when you have an apartment project that is sprinkled, it changes the fire code requirements of access. Further, that's another reason why there'd be an emergency access drive. If the neighbors desire connectivity between the 2 tracks and back through the neighborhood, we're agreeable to that. We're not opposed to that. I don't think that's what they want, but I think that would be the outcome of pushing that really hard.
Mr. Chair, may I quickly, I'm going to segue from that. Ma'am, they will add a second entrance if you want. I don't think your neighbors want the second entrance up through the north through your neighborhood.
We really don't. I guess that's my
Exactly.
point,
So I'm not
because
sure why you're
eventually they'll-
arguing for it. If you argue too much for it, you're going to get what you don't want. You're going to
Well,
get
that's what I'm saying. Is that the reason that it hasn't been pointed out
No,
now
and
that
no.
it's required?
Instead, they are technically complying with it down on the south.
Okay,
And it's
right.
mostly for safety, and they're doing 2 accesses to Wildwood Plaza. You need to stop asking, I mean, they're technically complying with it. And they're trying to accommodate you, but not also putting one out the north. Okay.
Well, okay, let me
Not-
say this. I've read that PUD, and it says that during construction, they will allow entrance to come down that road. You know, just, I guess they're not gonna build a road, but they can come across that yard. And
Okay.
then they'll stop people from using that after it's over.
Okay, ma'am, he said they're accommodating some of the requests on construction traffic. I think the commissioner's going to be requesting deferral, and I'm going to be okay with that. So you're going to get a chance, apparently, to talk about that more. I want to say that I agree with Commissioner Powers completely. Commissioner Noble, the applicant's reluctant willingness to defer this is above and beyond what we would normally ask for. Coming to 2 HOA meetings, at some point, it becomes a responsibility of the HOA. If neighbors didn't know about it, I don't blame the developer at all. I don't think any of us do. The HOA should have made sure the neighbors knew. That is more than we normally would insist on for neighborhood outreach, for community outreach. But if Commissioner Pennington believes that some more time would be necessary, and I think most of us will defer to him, I know at least I will, then we appreciate the applicant going what I believe is above and beyond. But I am in agreement with Commissioner Powers, Commissioner Noble, and most of us that this is appropriate for this location. They have done a great job of compromising so
And
far.
then let me say one more
No,
thing.
ma'am. They have done a great job of
He
compromising.
shows that
Ma'am,
they're low.
Ma'am.
We sit under
Ma'am.
them.
Ma'am,
We are lower than this project.
I am
That's
not,
why I
I'm not
was
listening.
worried about
I'm not
drainage.
listening to you, ma'am. I'm going to keep talking. And so I believe this is a great compromise. This is I'm going to just, Commissioner Powers
And
said
I
it-
did
said it as well
submit
as I
a
could say it.
written,
Ma'am, please.
I know.
They're speaking now. The time for public
But
comment
let
is
me-
over. No.
let me say
I'm gonna
that
ask
I
for
did
security to
submit a
come, please.
written
No,
product because
ma'am.
I've seen the pictures on your scale.
Ma'am, please
You
sit down.
got it.
Please sit down.
You saw-
We are
you saw
moving
my
toward a
pictures,
decision.
right? But you didn't show them to anybody. You didn't address it. Okay,
All right,
forgive
are we
me.
ready for a motion?
We just didn't receive the same kind of treatment that previously received. Thank you.
Commissioners, in terms of a deferral, I am not available on the 12th, so I'd ask that it go to September 26th, I believe is the next hearing, so.
I appreciate the effort to go. I don't know if my microphone's working. I know that I've said it before in the many cases that we've had in the Planning Commission. There is nothing more personal than what happens in your home and in your neighborhood. So I definitely understand when passions run high because we all care deeply about our neighborhood. But what we also want to make sure that we're doing is keeping a respectful tone of this conversation. I think we'd all benefit from a stronger understanding of exactly what the proposal says, and so the further conversation I think will help to do that. I stand firmly behind the idea that the only access to the existing Wildwood neighborhood should be with the single family that's being proposed in Track 1, not Track 2's apartment complexes. But if in the conversation with neighbors, it is their preference that there be connectivity between the neighborhood and the apartment complexes, then I'm gonna go with it. I recall that when PUD 1842 was approved, that the neighbors agreed to a gated fence between the multifamily and the other development that was gonna occur, that I was strongly opposed to, because I thought neighbors should have access to the amenities that will be added to this area. And so that was a concern of mine, but neighbors preferred to have the gated entry. So I said, okay, I'm gonna agree to what the neighbors want. So I think more conversations will be beneficial. I appreciate the effort from the applicant, and I think we'll be back at the end of the month with a recommendation, I hope. 26, sorry. So if there's nothing else from our fellow commissioners, I'm gonna move to continue PUD 2016 to the September 26th meeting of the Planning Commission.
We have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to continue the item to the September 26th meeting. It's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes.
26.
Do we need one more?
There's a light board I could probably get out of storage if it helps.
All right, that item is continued.
Thank you.
Item 17.
Item 17 is PUD 2025, application to rezone 13900 North Bryant Avenue from PUD 1946.
Hello. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us, as well as Mark Grubbs, who is the civil engineer for this project. If this looks familiar, it's because we just got done rezoning this not too long ago through PUD 1946. If you recall, the subject tract for many, many years was a horse operation called Hallmark Farms. The horse operation ceased to operate. It was shopped to all of the horse people in the metro and in the state, and there wasn't a desire to buy it for the purpose of operating a horse facility. So my previous client rezoned it in a manner to where the frontage was commercial and in the back it was residential. You may also recall that this line right here is actually the farthest northern point of the city. So the property itself actually is in Edmond and Oklahoma City. So we went through the effort of rezoning it in both places, and now here we are again. So when my client approached me, I explained all the efforts that we had undergone with the neighbors to get to the point of the approval. And so we did have a community meeting prior to ever filing anything, because I was worried that there would be some confusion in the document that we all negotiated, and now here we are again getting notice. So we did that, and I explained that one of the biggest points of concern and maybe the most important agreement that was reached in the first instance was a 20-foot buffer around the outside of our residential where we adjoin residential. So with that, he turned Mr. Grubbs loose, and Mr. Grubbs designed this in a manner to where we are still adhering to that 20-foot buffer. Here is an elevation of what that looks like. So we have our townhome, green space, fence, and then their backyard. So you see, it's a pretty good amount of space from our developed site to theirs. So the other thing we're doing is we're adding the ability to have personal storage here with what we're calling Track 2. Jared, could you go to the aerial, please? Or you can see it right here. The southeast portion of Track 2 is a blue line. There are significant trees there as well as water. So by virtue of the topography of the land, we have this pretty sizable buffer between what will be personal storage and the existing neighborhood. So we're moving from a type of single family to a different type of single family, but it's still residential. This is a townhome type of development that is intended to be individually platted and sold. So we think it's still in keeping with the area. If you were to zoom out, if you had a Zoom with me this week, we had the opportunity to look at, there's a lot of density that exists in this area. It's an area that's frankly fully developed except for this one horse farm. You have Oklahoma Christian University that is just to your west. You have duplex developments to the north, duplex developments to the south. So from an intensity and density standpoint, we believe that it is compatible with what's going on around it. There are 2 TEs, both of which we agree to, and then we would ask to add a TE to modify modify the building limit line to 5 feet and then the lot coverage to 80%. I know that there's been protest letters that have come in. My belief is a lot of them deal with drainage. A significant amount of time was spent in the first time we got it zoned and then our community meeting on this one dealing with drainage. We understand that drainage is an issue out there. Again, a blue line does run through the site. You can see on this site plan how we've respected that. We will, of course, have to provide flood studies and go through Public Works to ensure that we comply with all of the ordinances. I understand it's a frustrating answer when neighbors hear it, but we can't tell them anything now because we are simply in the zoning phase. It's not till a building permit phase where we can actually give them details on how it is we're going to meet the ordinance. But the reality is that that is just the answer. So we'll have to go through all those steps, which are expensive and lengthy, and we will do that when the time is appropriate. Here, we're just talking about modifying from one type of single family to another and allowing personal storage along Bryant. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you. So I know that, David, could you put the chart back up? Sorry, so that commissioners can see. The previously approved PUD, where Track 2 was just supposed to be commercial, was C3?
Correct.
Okay.
At the time, it was anticipated perhaps to be a grocery store.
Okay. Don't tease us with grocery stores in Ward 7, okay? It's a very sensitive topic. But I just want to be clear that that was already an intense use that was going to be in Track 2.
Already commercial. We're literally just adding personal storage.
Okay. And so I know we may have neighbors. Do we have neighbors signed up to speak?
We have 2, yes.
If they have comments about drainage, I'm going to call on one of our favorites, Barry Lodge, because I am not, to all of our neighbors, I am not a drainage expert. I'm not going to pretend to be one, but Barry is, and I'm going to let him tell you about what the city does to review the compliance with drainage to ensure that we are not creating any challenges for drainage. So happy to hear from neighbors.
Right.
Oh, let me say this, sorry, Mr. Chairman. We've received a lot of letters from neighbors. I have read them all, and I appreciate it. I know it's a lot. That's a lot of change, but I know that this is also very similar to what was already previously proposed, but I do appreciate the engagement and appreciate the applicant hosting a community meeting already. So ready to hear from neighbors.
All right.
One quick question, if I could. Do I remember about the topography of this site, that Track 2 is actually sort of down from Bryant? So if whatever's built there is single story, it's not like it's going to be looming up onto Bryant.
Yeah, everything obviously goes down towards that blue line right there, the creek that runs through there.
Okay.
And Bryant, we may hear traffic. My belief is Bryant's fully developed as a 4-lane section there. So you're not far from Memorial and the Turnpike, and you would expect to see traffic in a location like this.
All right, we can hear from Patrick Bray. Please come to the podium and give your name and address. You have up to 5 minutes. Please use your 5 minutes. You won't have another opportunity to come back up.
Chairman Clare, members of the commission, My name is Patrick Bray. I live with my wife Brenda at 14209 Middlebury Road, Wellington Park Addition in North Oklahoma City. I moved into this addition about 20 years ago. My property adjoins the east boundary of the Tract 2. And when I moved there, I had no illusion, no expectation that the horse farm was always going to be a horse farm. However, I did expect that it would be developed in a manner that was compatible with the neighboring neighborhoods, the neighbors. And so I wasn't surprised about 18 months ago when the property went up for sale and a developer represented by Mr. Box had a meeting with the neighborhood, and from that meeting and from several discussions back and forth with the HOA board, an agreement was reached. And out of that came, as Mr. Pennington mentioned, PUD 1946. And the significant parts of that for what is now Tract 1 up here on the proposed was, it was zoned R1, compatible and similar to Wellington Park. It was to be 2-story limits with a 35-foot height limit. There's also supposed to be a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. That's about half Wellington Park, but it's probably similar to what is being developed in North Oklahoma City. There was a 20-foot buffer zone. 20 feet isn't very much. It's about like from me to that wall, but it's something. The conceptual drawing showed 35 single-family residences in what would be Tract 1 here. And the developer indicated that the house size would probably be between 2,000 and 3,500 square feet. All of this is similar to and compatible with not only Wellington Park, but the surrounding neighborhoods. So then, here it is, less than a year later, another developer comes in. And this time, he wants to throw everything that had been agreed upon by both the developer and the neighborhood away. And now to come in with a PUD that is R4 commercial, not commercial, multifamily, and it has a combination of 4 plexes, 6 plexes, and 8 plexes. The part that backs up to my lot would be, it looks like 2 8 plexes. As near as I can measure them, they're in excess of 200 feet long. And I think we've changed it so the height limitation is now 2 stories rather than 3. But Mr. Pennington talked about, what do you see out of your backyard? 50 feet away from me, there's going to be a 200-foot building, 2 stories tall, essentially a warehouse, but it does have windows so that whoever's in it can watch me and my neighbor's kids if they want to. But it is not at all compatible with the neighborhood around it. You know, the application says that it's compatible and similar to and in harmony with. It's none of those things. And so my objection would be that it does not fit the neighborhood surrounding it. And so I'd urge you to reject this proposal. It just does not seem equitable to me that something that an entire neighborhood agreed with and a developer agreed with and a PUD that you approved and the city council approved should be completely thrown out a year later. I'd like to mention quickly that some of the letters you received were from Mr. Bill Silk. He's now recovering from COVID, or he'd be here representing the HOA. And his comments to you are pretty technical, involve some things that I'm not going to talk about. So I appreciate your time and your work. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bray. Any questions? No. All right. Everin Page.
Hello. My name is Everin Page. I live at 14,000 Plymouth Crossing. My house sits at the corner of where you enter this cul-de-sac that dead ends into the property. I really appreciate the time to be here. I also sent letters. I made my husband send letters. the entire neighborhood is very upset. As he mentioned, we agreed on stuff. We recognize it couldn't always be a horse farm as much as we wanted that. One of my biggest concerns, I am concerned about the drainage. I'm happy to hear that there will be a flood study, but the density in tract 1, in my opinion, is unacceptable. The single point of entry will take it out onto Bryant, and you're correct, it's a 4-lane street that floods frequently. There are no sidewalks. One of my neighbors has also spoken with the city about sidewalks because our children walk from the entrance of our neighborhood to the middle school in Edmond that is just up the street. The city has said that that would take a bond issue and extensive time to build those sidewalks if it even passed. We've been asking for a sidewalk there for years. The other concern that I have is to the elementary school. I recognize this is Oklahoma City. It is Edmond Schools. The elementary school that these 86 units would be designated to is already the largest elementary school in Edmond with over 900 children. I don't see how this is keeping in line with what the existing neighborhood is in. I know Bill Silk also mentioned concerns about dumpsters. There were also concerns about, yes, they would be sold individually, but a landlord could purchase an entire plex, rent those out, and what does that do to our property values? I also am very concerned about the storage unit. I recognize, yes, there is a large buffer there. You're not necessarily going to see it, but I question whether it's needed. We already have another storage unit that backs up to the south side of our neighborhood that creates drainage issues for us. Despite, it's been there, I think maybe 15 years. It's been there a long time, but when it was built, it created problems for our drainage, despite having a drainage study, and we continue to have increased maintenance costs as an HOA because of those things. And I don't feel like the developer has taken our concerns into account. I appreciated that they took the time to meet with us, turned around and basically didn't change anything from what we talked about in that meeting. He also mentioned that he wanted to honor the heritage of Hallmark Farm, and I don't see how any of this does that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up to speak.
So if I may, my belief is that this PUD does adhere to the agreements and the commitments made in the previous PUD. I'm acknowledging that it's a different style of development than was approved, but the 20-foot landscape buffer, the height limitations, those things are still adhered to. It's just a different form of single family. We will have to, we in the PUD agreed to follow the ordinance. We'll have to install sidewalks along that arterial when we go and develop. When we seek a building permit, we'll be required to install sidewalks. So we'll at least do our part to put the sidewalks in. Again, the height is 35 feet and 2 stories is what we have in the PUD, which is actually less than what the neighborhood to our east, because in theory they could be 2.5 stories. So our height matches. It's just a different style of single family. In terms of like the fit, again, it's a different style of single family. But if we think about density, we're about 9 units an acre. If we recall back to the item that was the duplex in Ward 7, that duplex development was 10.5 dwelling units an acre. So we're less than that because this is really, it's not an apartment. These are single family, just townhome style, intended to be individually owned and sold. So we absolutely believe that it fits. It's within the density range. It's frankly on the lower limit of the density range contemplated under the LUDA for the comp plan designation for this site. It's different than what the previous developer had agreed to in terms of style. The previous developer couldn't make that development work. So I understand that it's sometimes frustrating, confusing for neighbors when they spend a lot of time. It's the nature of what happens. This is not the first time that I've gone through to rezone a piece of property that I had previously zoned for someone else. That's just kind of the nature of development. So we believe we adhere to the agreements that were put in place to respect the neighbor with that 20-foot landscape buffer, with the height limitations, and with the low density that we've got. So we would ask for your approval.
Mr. Bray, I see you standing there.
Well, if I may.
You have 20 seconds.
How many?
20 seconds.
Okay, one, the density is not compatible at all. You've got 86 units, and on the acreage he's developing on, that's about 5 or 6 times what Wellington Park is. And when we had a meeting with the developer, he took our interests, our questions about it. He sent us an email in which he outlined them, but this proposal is exactly the same as what he made then.
Okay, thank you.
20-foot buffer. If he has a tree that's as tall as my house, it's going to take 30 years for that tree to get that height. And I don't see that a 200-foot building is similar to a single-family residence.
Okay.
There's no similarity.
We've heard your concerns. Thank you. Commissioner Pennington, do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, several comments. Number one, I understand the frustration of going through a negotiation as a neighborhood and that being carefully considered and then being forced back into the conversation. You just listened to a whole conversation in the previous item, which is the exact same thing, the exact same issue of we negotiated, we did it in good faith, we came to a conclusion, our minds had settled around that, and then now the plans have changed and we've got to wrap our minds around a new thing. So I certainly share that concern. We can ask Barry to come up and share the review that the City of Oklahoma City will do. But I will say just a few things as Barry comes up to the mic. Number one, these are still single-family homes. It's just a different form of single-family homes. And I respect all the people who disagree with me about that. I know that this is technical. I understand that you might feel like that's not true. But I'm assuring you that a townhome is still a single-family home. It's the same height as what it could be as a single-family residence. If you wanted to just have a single-family home that was on its own lot, this is the same height as that. It's the same thing. We agreed to the 20-foot buffer between the neighborhood and the homes, regardless of whether they were a townhome or individually a home. And so that same buffer is still in place. I certainly share the concern about sidewalks and kids walking. I like to envision whenever I'm voting on these cases that I live in the neighborhood. Like if it were me and my 9-year-old has to walk to the elementary school, what does that mean? Those are the same concerns we had when we voted on the previous PUD, frankly. In fact, we were more concerned because it was commercial development, and that meant there was more traffic in and out consistently versus a residential neighborhood. So I feel like the use of a residential neighborhood is going to be a better outcome than if it was commercial and you had outside people coming in and out. So it is a trade-off that I think is difficult. The other benefit of Track 2 being storage is, once again, it's going to be less in and out traffic of a storage unit than it would be if it was a retail establishment. And that's, to me, a benefit of making this change. Barry, do you want to share about the review that will occur regarding drainage?
And Kamal, I want to add something more to Barry. Just technically, in the application, it says that access to the interior plotted lots shall be from a private street having a minimum paving right-of-way width of 26 feet. And just explain how that works and if it can be built in a 26-foot right-of-way.
So Barry Lodge, Public Works. The TE that was put in that they have agreed to will essentially modify that portion of the master design statement in that they are agreeing that if this is developed as what's being termed as single-family residential, that it will be put in accordance with the city standards. That's going to be the 26-foot pavement section and the 50-foot right-of-way. So that will revise that portion, and they have agreed to that.
And it's going to be a private street?
Yes.
And so if it's a private street, it's going to be gated?
Yes.
And a boulevard?
We'll meet, I'll let Mark answer that.
I'm not, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. Not sure whether or not it's going to be gated or not yet. That is yet to be determined, but that's what we're proposing as of now is private streets. But we originally put that in there, got a little pushback, and so we've agreed to modify that to meet the 50-foot right of way.
And I know that's right on the border, but is it all in Oklahoma City or is it in Oklahoma City and Edmond?
This piece is all in Oklahoma City. The north portion is in Edmond.
Right.
North
I was
of-
gonna say, where's the line?
But that access road looked like it kicked a little, so I
the
just wasn't sure.
access road is half and half.
Okay, that's why I wanted to.
Mark, will this be platted?
Yes, it'll be platted, and each unit would be on its own lot.
Which is what differentiates it from a true like multifamily project. It'll be individually platted lots throughout there.
So will there be more than one access then?
Well, no, you'll have the one access off of Bryant, but we'll satisfy all of the
Subdivision Ag.
requirements, yes. Which is what, as Barry said, that's what TE2 seeks to do, is to make sure we adhere to subregs and access to funds.
How, I might have learned something on the last item. Does it not require two for fire and safety issues?
Oh, it's a divided boulevard, which is considered two under the fire code.
It's what?
Divided boulevard entry, which
Got it.
satisfies the fire code.
Jeremy? Yeah? What do you think?
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't see it on the exhibit that way. That's what right, it's just a pretty picture, but I would agree that would be a need because they can always box in and exit and come down
Yeah.
if there's a problem on the entry.
Yeah, whatever fire makes us do is what we'll do. We don't seek to vary any ordinance requirements.
Okay.
So I think one of the things that I noted is, I asked the question, and Mr. Grubbs responded that it will be platted, but unless we require it to be platted, there's no guarantee this will be single family, is what I understood.
So do we need to require that it be platted?
You can require, we'll agree that we'll plat it.
Okay. So we can add that as a TE. Just so that our neighbors understand, this planning commission, even if they were single family, a traditional single family home, this commission cannot dictate whether or not it is for rent or for own, or to be purchased by an owner, a singular owner. We don't have any say on that. But the fact that we're going to require the plat, so it's individually platted, those are individual lots. The intention, it sounds like at this point, is for them to be sold. But we wouldn't have that guarantee even if it was a traditional single-family home, that at no point no one would rent it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's illegal to prohibit.
We can't prohibit that.
Renting.
Yeah. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion. Unless you'd like to hear from our neighbor, Mr. Chairman.
May I speak just briefly?
30 seconds.
I respect your comments about the traffic and commercial being more, but I respectfully disagree because they're still planning to eventually do commercial development in the western part where it says future development, and you're increasing the number of individuals living in that area. So it's already, what was previously talked about, I think, was 46 houses. Now it's 86 units. So it is more traffic compared to what was previously approved.
It is more, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and the reason why the density was increased and the reason why that we're here today is because the original plan didn't work.
Correct.
Because I wish you would have done the original plan, because that was really nice.
Yeah. If only what would pencil
If only
was
economics
exactly
didn't
what
matter.
what we liked. I hear you, and I would encourage continued conversations because the process is not over. The process will continue to the city council, regardless of whether we were making the recommendation to say yes to this or to say no to this. I think that more residential homes, again, people living there and the intention, we're platting it individually with the intention of these being owned by people. I think these are people who will also be invested in this community, and I support that. I don't think that we can be guaranteed of the future commercial development. Maybe there will be more residential development, but that's not what is before us today. And so we have to make the best decision we can with the information that we currently have, which is never a good answer. It's not a satisfying answer for anyone, but it is our reality. And I'm, of course, happy to visit with neighbors about this further if they'd like to visit with me, and would encourage you to visit with Councilwoman Nice as well. But at this point, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend City Council approval of PUD 2025 with the addition of a technical evaluation requiring that the multifamily, the single family be platted.
And 5-foot building limit line, and then the addition of the lot coverage to 80%.
Can you read the whole, give me the whole thing?
Yeah,
we
so
can just
building
make
limit
sure.
line 5 feet and lot coverage 80%.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend approval of City Council, PUD 2025, subject to the amended technical evaluations. Is there a second?
I'm not getting them. I don't have the screen.
There it is. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're circling back to item 12. I presume we still don't have an applicant for that, so.
So do we just need to move?
We just
I
need
guess
to-
it's deferred automatically?
We just need to continue it.
Staff's recommendation was a continuance until September 12th, so if we could make that the motion then. And
Okay.
Mr. Pennington,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll just make the motion to continue SPUD 1659 to the September 12th meeting of the Planning Commission.
I have a motion for Commissioner Pennington to continue the item. It's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. And that item is continued. All right, that brings us to additional items and communications and reports, Planning Commission committees. Anything to report?
The ADU task force is meeting on the 27th, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Planning Commission members, Commissioner Powers? Nothing? Commissioner Meek? Pass. Commissioner Newman? Nothing. Commissioner Govine? Nothing. Commissioner Pennington?
Appreciate the support. I know that, again, passions can run high when we're talking about things that are deeply personal, so I appreciate us trying to manage the meeting as best we can. And I hope that you all can now see the level of passion that we have to deal with when we go to neighborhood meetings too, because this is not an easy job at all. So I just appreciate the careful consideration as always.
Commissioner LaForge? All right. Yeah, I learned something today, and I forget that I have a gavel, and I missed an opportunity to use it. So, all right. That's all I got. Planning Department.
Nothing for me.
Municipal Counselor's Office.
Regrettably so, just briefly, if you'll indulge me. So I appreciate Commissioner Pennington's remarks on item 16. I apologize. In an effort to try and assist, it doesn't seem like that went terribly well. So I apologize if anybody thought I'd stepped out of place. Just trying to help, and it got a little wonky on me. So I apologize. Next time I'll just try to remind on the gavel. So apologies. Hope I didn't offend anybody, particularly the lady I was addressing at the time. So thank you.
All right. Any citizens to be heard? Seeing none. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.